What's up, guys? Evolutionary Underground episode 55 is coming your way. Today, we're going to talk about Retatrutide GLP triple agonist discussing, and this is presented by Geneza Pharma. So, this is going to be a really good episode. Myself and Mobster, we're going to go over this amazing drug, and it's
Mm,
really gotten popular the last year. We're seeing
huge,
more and more
huge.
guys using this stuff. So, first, to remind everyone, we are on Apple, we're on Spotify. Make sure you smash the hell out of the like button.
Mm,
You comment, you subscribe on all the platforms, helps the algorithms pick our podcast up, and it helps us spread the podcast to as many people as possible so they get the good information. And we're talking about Retatrutide, and look, it's changing how both men and women approach eating, and it's changing
yeah,
how people are losing body fat. And it's very important that we talk about this drug because you may not know about it. You may be a type of person who's still using some of these old school drugs, and Mobster's going to kind of go over some of these old school drugs over the years that guys have been
sure.
using and gals have been using that have led to catastrophic problems, including
Sometimes,
death.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
Retta is much more safe. In fact, in studies, it's been shown that there's been zero people get hurt on this drug. So it's very good. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about the how it works, how to use it solo or stacked, implementing it with your cycle. We're talking about side effects. We're gonna talk about how to use it with Geneza Pharma products, and we're gonna kind of go over that. So with that said, let's talk about retatrutide, and it's also called LY-3437943. And what it is, it's a glucagon. It's a glucagon-like GLP-1 drug, and it's found its way into bodybuilding world with a bang. And
Yes,
it was brought to market by Eli Lilly, which is a huge pharmaceutical company. And this has been their flagship drug that they're trying to get approved. And it's really led to their stock skyrocketing. If you take a look at a 5 year chart of Eli Lilly, their stock has pretty much 10x, 11x, 12x. So if you bought the
mm,
stock 5 years ago, let's say you invested $1,000 in their stock, that $1,000 is now $10,000. You put $10,000, it's now 100,000. So you've added a zero to your investment. And one of the big reasons why is because the market is pricing in this amazing drug, this Retta, that's going to be FDA approved in the next year or two, and it's really going to revolutionize things. Now, they already had tirzepatide as their GLP-1 flagship drug, and tirzepatide is a double agonist. The Retta is a triple agonist. So that is the
yeah,
difference. So it's going to replace tirzepatide. You should see uh, doctors who are prescribing this for obesity and for type 2 diabetes. They will graduate, or they should graduate, their clients from tirzepatide to the
yes.
retatrutide when it gets approved. And when that happens, it'll be interesting to see if people are still using tirzepatide. But for now, tirzepatide, as of this podcast, when we're doing this podcast, is FDA approved, and retatrutide is not FDA approved. But that should be changing pretty soon.
Very
So,
soon. Yeah.
Mobster, anything you want to add to
I'm
that?
just going to touch. Yeah, I'm just going to say, Stephen, and to echo something that Steve's already said, the growth of the GLPs, all of them, Steve, is absolutely fucking enormous. I literally, I think I mentioned this on a podcast the other day in passing. I'm seeing members of my local community posting, should I say, on social media, photographs of the peptides and specifically the GLPs as a diet aid for people in a way that I've never seen before. Not even the drugs that we're going to touch upon later on, which were quite common here in South Wales as we do this show. So to talk about the level of success and to talk, as we will do, touch upon during the show, the success stories we've seen on the forums with people using these products and specifically retatrutide is enormous in a way. I mean, again, I was a kind of, as Steve likes to give me shit, a boomer. I'm kind of old school in certain particular ways, but I've said on these shows that I've come on board with certain things, and the research we have to do for these shows, the information that we put out to you guys has taught me, and I've talked about the approach that the pharmacy companies took specifically with the triple agonists, as we are talking about today, and how they've mimicked nature. And you go, the science fucking works. The studies we've seen seem to be working. The success we seems to be working. So this is definitely one of, if again, bearing in mind what Steve's already said about the growth, I'd probably still want to chuck a few bucks at the pharmacy company, because I think there's some mileage here in terms of the way that this is going to grow. And when it gets onto the market, when it gets out there into the common marketplace, not the kind of grey market that we kind of deal with sometimes, but out there for every fucker, it's going to be huge in a way that's going to blow your minds, especially when you go back 10, 15, 20 years and the stuff that we used to do and how dangerous it was in the past. So let's talk about, as you say, the bit more of the background, bit more of the
Yeah.
history. For example, the first GLP-1.
Yeah, and the most popular GLP-1, I want to say it was the first because they've been studying these since the 80s and 90s, but the
Yes,
first one to
yes,
really storm the market. And we saw on the
yes.
forum 3, 4 years ago, a lot of guys and gals using it with semaglutide. And semaglutide was produced by Novo Nordisk. And Novo Nordisk, they've been getting their clocks cleaned by Eli Lilly now because people are transitioning away from the semaglutide over to the tirzepatide, and they will be, once FDA approved, the Retatrutide. And you can get Retatrutide by coming on the forum and checking out Geneza Pharma, by the way, because they do carry it, and they do carry all the steroids and other things that you're going to need, all the ancillaries you're going to need, by the way. So you can get it, as Mobster said, on the gray market right now or on the black market. So the problem with semaglutide and why Novo Nordisk has gotten its clock cleaned, including their CEO getting fired recently because their stock has been taking a dump, is because Eli Lilly is coming up with a superior option. Now, semaglutide, look, it was a great option 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Great fucking option. But things change rapidly. And if you're not adjusting to those changes, you're going to be left behind. That's what happened to Novo Nordisk. And semaglutide, look, they're a single agonist. It's a single agonist. That's it.
Mm.
It's not a double agonist. It's not a triple agonist. And we're going to talk about the differences in a second.
Yes.
But it
Yeah.
just doesn't do what the Retta does, right? And we're going to get into the studies later to show you how much superior Retta is over any of these other fat loss burners. So the truth of the matter is, Retta is now the number one weight loss and fat burning drug out there. And
Yeah.
we both agree that the side effects are so low and has actual
Mm.
health benefits that other fat loss drugs do not have. So, Momster, talk about some of the other fat loss drugs that
Yeah.
people have been
Yeah.
using over the
I'll,
years. As you said, the boomer
yeah.
generation. What did the boomer
I'll
generation
I'll bring
use?
you back in to talk about the minimal side effects that we have seen with the GLPs and specifically with Reta. But let's talk about, as Steve Smith says, some of the products. Let me just give you an example. I'll touch on two, Steve. Cleanse specifically. I've mentioned on other shows that I've literally seen people being sold clenbuterol in our local gym, so to speak, and I was fully aware that some of these would be, it was typically women, Steve, not men, although men, of course, have used clenbuterol. But I'm just talking about the example that I had. And they would come in and they'd be looking to get ready for a holiday. They'd be looking to get into shape for a wedding or a dress or some proper occasion. And they would do the usual things, Steve, of leaving it to the last fucking minute and then coming in and, can you help me with this? And what's really good for getting me into shape? And Glenn, and as we're going to talk about DMP, you could kind of just sit there and they would have an effect. The problem was, and I'm specifically Glenn, it made you feel anxious. So there you are sitting there and you've got palpitations, breathing's a little bit shorter than it normally would. And it, for some people, was a very uncomfortable way to feel, etc., etc. The problem again, and specifically with DMP, is if there any products that they gave you at that time, and these we're talking about the side effects and how dangerous they could be. Problem is sometimes the human psyche would go, oh, if it's working and I take more, then I'm going to get twice the results. The problem with that, of course, is that your likelihood of you getting side effects, including like extreme anxiety with the clean or death, specifically with DMP, the story started to creep out into the media. We'd see stuff. I can think of one example with DMP. A young lady in the British newspapers had brought some product direct from China. It arrives in a bag, Steve. It's this yellowy looking, not very nice, appealing looking powder in a bag with a sticky label that essentially says it's like product X or something, but she knew that it was DMP. And I think the suggestion that came in a little note or that she looked at online was something like the dosage. And I'm not going to say the dosage on this show because we really don't want people to use this product, but it was typically what you guys can search for yourself. And straight away, and with no decent working knowledge of what the fuck she was doing, she had a few weeks to get into shape. She wasn't really even that out of shape, Steve. But again, she did the logic of, well, if this amount is a good amount, an effective amount, then twice that amount will be twice as effective. And the problem with DLP, more even than Clen, was, and albuterol, Steve, was there's a very small range which is effective versus lethal or fatal or dangerous or is going to put you in a hospital. And for example, with DNP, the phrase, and I'm going to slightly oversimplify it, of people essentially cooking themselves from the inside was fucked up and was very, very difficult, especially if you didn't get to the ER, the emergency room, or A&E, as we say in this country, accident and emergency, quick enough. And you was honest about what you was doing. And the doctor then looked at this and had some experience. It was very, very difficult to treat. The longer you left it, the worse it was. So products that worked arguably, but came with such a high degree of risk, especially if you was a little bit outside the range for the effective
Have you
dose.
used any
And
of
just
these? Have you used
no,
Clan, albuterol,
never,
or NDMP?
never, no,
Yeah.
no.
So I've
The
used.
closest I ever,
Yeah.
yeah, go on,
No.
go on.
What? Say what you're saying. The closest what?
No, no, I was just going to say, Steve, I've taken certain products in the past where I've used training like I feel toxic.
Yeah.
I've used certain supplements where I hadn't looked at the side effects and
Yeah. Yeah.
thinking, what
So
the fuck is
stimulants
happening
and
to me?
stuff
But
like that.
fortunately,
Yeah.
it was
So the
temporary.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
used each of the, I've used Clan, albuterol, and
Mm,
DMP twice each, and I've used
mm,
Retatrutide twice as
mm.
well. So
What was
using
your
all of,
experience on the first ones? Yeah. Go on, go on.
yeah, and look, at the
Your
end of the
personal experience.
day, on these fat burning compounds, fat burning drugs,
Mm,
compounds, whatever you want to call them, the Clan, the albuterol, and the DMP, you feel like shit. You have shaky
yes.
hands, you're
Yes.
sweaty, your
Waiting.
heart
Yeah.
is racing, it affects
Constantly
your
thirsty. Yeah.
sleep, it affects everything about you, and it just makes you feel nasty, like absolutely nasty. Your sweat smells nasty, you're
Oh,
toxic,
yeah.
you're
Is it
like,
the NP one, Steve, that can give your sweat an actual yellow tinge so it stains your
yep.
clothes?
So it's like you're basically a walking Chernobyl when you're on these. But
Mm,
with the Retta, it doesn't do any of that. It actually has health
no.
benefits, which we're going to get into later. Now, what is the
Yeah.
secret to Retatrutide, and how does it work? And then let me go over
Yes.
it and kind of
Let me
simplify it.
just, sorry, let me preface this, Steve. And I've said this on similar shows we've done before. Steve's going to talk about the specifics. I'm just going to introduce it thus. One of the things that I liked when they looking at all the GLPs, but specifically the reason why we discussed in Reto, which is a triple agonist, is that the scientists went away and looked at what your body does in nature and then literally took certain aspects of that and programmed it all in to the product. What happens with appetite? What happens with satiation? What happens with food noise? What happens with the way that we reward ourselves? Can we mitigate all of those things? So talk about the methodology of action, Steve, and how the scientists have brought that information in and looked at what
Yeah.
was going on to
So
make a great product.
the Retta is a triple agonist. So we're going to go over the difference between the semaglutide, the tirzepatide, and the retatrutide, right? So number one, all three of them, they're GLP-1s. That stands for glucagon-like peptide 1, okay? And the way that these work is by regulating insulin secretion and also by regulating appetite by acting on this receptor. So basically, it's taking over the way your pancreas is releasing insulin, and it's regulating appetite by acting on that GLP-1 effect, that GLP-1 receptor. Okay, so that's what all three do. Now, tirzepatide, being a double agonist, also does the next one along with the Retta, and that's via the GIP receptor. Now, this helps improve glucose and lipid metabolism by acting on the glucose dependent GIP receptor. And that's something that semaglutide does not do. Now, the third thing, which semaglutide and tirzepatide do not do, but Reta does is GCG-R. And that's the magic of the way Reta is in studies going to be more superior is it changes your energy expenditure. And it does this by acting on the glucagon receptors or GCG-R. Now, one of the things you're going to notice on the Reta versus the tirzepatide and semaglutide is the more you stay on Reta over time, the more you'll notice this where your metabolism is absolutely insane. And a lot of people actually complain about this because they're like, I've been on Reta for 6 months and I
Yeah.
went and I did whatever. Let's say I go fishing for 5 hours and I'm busting my ass. I'm not talking about going fishing, just throwing it out there and sitting there for 5 hours drinking a beer. No, no, no. I'm talking about actual
Yeah.
I'm talking about actual fishing where you're burning a shit ton of calories, you're running all over the place, you're reeling in fish, you're casting out, you're doing all this stuff. Any type of energy expenditure, it could be mowing your lawn, it could be anything. And then especially when you're in the gym, a lot of people complain that they're like, man, I feel hungry as fuck because you burn shit ton of calories just not doing anything. But then when you're actually working out, you're
Yes.
burning even more calories. So this is where it comes in. So you're able to burn more body fat and more calories on the Reta than you would be on the tirzepatide or semaglutide for that reason. And hence why in the studies, Retatrutide had better results when it came to people who were using it versus the other two GLP-1 agonists. So that is the secret to why the Reta is the superior option. So your body is going to turn into a fat burner rather than a fat storer, and that switch is going to go off as soon as you start using this stuff. It's going to take some time to build up in your system, obviously, but once it's built up in your system, your body's going to be fat burning. So you might find yourself eating more calories on Reta, and you'll actually still lose weight. So you're notice your food bills are getting higher and higher and higher, which may not be a good thing for a lot of people, especially the way our food costs are becoming. So that's why the effects are amazing. And we've seen bodybuilders, Mobster, go from 11 or 12% body fat who are doing
Yes.
everything right, 11 or 12% body fat, get down to 7 or 8% body fat because it helps you take things to that next level that you were not able to do before. And that's why you see bodybuilders who are using this stuff and smart coaches are putting their clients on this stuff and putting their bodybuilders on this stuff because it is a weapon that you must use now. So if you go on the forum and take a look at the logs, a lot of people are using Reta now, especially those at higher levels, and they're using it because it is a weapon. Mobster? You have any comments on that?
Absolutely. Sorry, absolutely, Steve. Listen, you can come onto the forums yourself and see for yourself. One of the things, and we're going to talk about what the studies show as well, but one of the things I noted when we've done similar previous shows was they looked at the people in the study and they were asking them certain particular questions. For example, and I touched upon this a little bit earlier on in the show. There's an element in modern society, especially in the first world, of rewarding ourselves with food. If I can do X, I can have that ice cream. If I can do Y, I will have that 1,000-calorie coffee. And one of the things they noticed that people wasn't rewarding themselves, and that's something that's common for bodybuilders, and we see this on the forum all the time. And obviously, because we're more aware of these things, is increasing insulin sensitivity, meaning again, as Steve touched upon earlier on, you're becoming better at processing food. You are satiated, as I touched upon earlier on, Steve, insofar as that again, this is asking people how they feel, meaning you feel full up sooner, you feel more full longer, meaning you're not hungry, you don't need to have as many frequent feedings as perhaps you did before, and so on and so forth. And another one, this applies to all the GLPs, but again, retatrutide, Reta as I should call it for the rest of the show, is the longer the studies went on, and I think one example we gave in a previous show, Steve, we looked at one study that continued 72 weeks. So in other words, 1 year and very nearly another 6 months, certainly another 5 months, 17 months in total, there or thereabouts. And the longer these people were using the products, and specifically Reta, the better the results. So let's look now, Steve, at what the studies themselves talk, and we'll discuss some of the points that come up in there in more detail as we need to.
All right, I'll talk about the first study. You can talk about the second study. So, and again, we'll link the studies in the article if you guys want to dig it up, or you can just look them up. So, one of the first studies that was really good that I wanted to share, it shows that users lost 40 pounds or 18% of their body weight while using the Reta for 6 months. And the key thing is here, those who continued on the drug for a full year ended up losing 15 more pounds on top and lost 7% more of their body on top. So this tells
Let
us
me bring you very quickly, Steve. Sorry, just that is statistically, and again, it's gonna sound very scientific, that is statistically unusual. Meaning, when it's been compared to other products, other fat burning protocols, other dietary protocols, other lifestyle protocols, the numbers that were coming back that Steve just mentioned, especially when they were on longer, is above and beyond the statistical norm. That's allowed for deviations. Some people be better with a diet, better in training. This is the idea that you can lose 40 fucking pounds, and that would be an average, that's the low and the high, an average, or 18%, nearly 1/5 of your body weight is out fucking standing. Carry on, Steve.
yeah, if you want to talk about the next study and give us some of the numbers on
Yeah,
those.
so again, look, this is another study, and arguably, actually, here, Steve, it's even better fucking results because it goes users were using a stronger dose. We actually typically see certain GLP products, different dosages for different products, but they were using a strong dose of 8 to 12 milligrams per week and showed, remember the numbers from before, guys, a 24% total weight loss. It was tested against other drugs, as I just mentioned, and blew every other drug away. Now, we link again, Steve. This is a Science Direct article, and it goes on. There's a third one. Do you want me to read this one out as well, Steve?
Sure.
Yeah, so another study looked at just some of these studies. I believe one of the studies we've talked about in the past had 12,000 participants. That is a big fucking number right there. This was a smaller study. It looked at just 350 adults and was split between the genders, so male and female. They also ran a small dose, but again, compare this to the number that we just talked about, 8 to 12 milligrams at 24% loss. But even a small dose of 1 milligram for 24 weeks lost 7%. Those who did 4 milligrams lost 13%. And those, and I'll just let me scroll down, took 8 milligrams, lost 17%. So you're seeing dose dependent results, but you're also seeing, arguably, all of these numbers that I've just read out are lower than the one that we talked about in the second study, because that went as high as 12 milligrams. Those, it says here, that did 12 milligrams lost 18%. The placebo group, again, this is what I talked about with statistical norms, lost 1 fucking %, Steve. And again, just to finish, it says, tells you that the drug is very effective based on how much you dose, but also if you dose it too high, there are laws of diminishing returns. But again, this is against safety protocols, the balances of the side
So it
effects,
just
etc.,
proves
etc.
there's no need to run
Yes,
it
yeah,
that high. You can run it.
no,
There's no need to run it 12 milligrams when you're getting just the same
no.
results at 8 milligrams. So that's a good thing.
And you
That means
get
the drug is
great
effective. It's not
results at
something.
1 milligram. 7% of 1 milligram is fantastic, Steve.
Yeah.
Never
So
mind 8
explain
to
the
12
placebo
milligrams.
group only lost 1%. Explain what that means, placebo
1%.
group, for people who don't know what placebo group is in studies.
You can do this all the time. You have what's called a control group sometimes, which is essentially people just doing the normal stuff. It might mean, for example, here that they would have the same dietary information and lifestyle information as was given to those people that were using the product. That would be a control. A
Yeah. So they
placebo is
thought. So
literally in this example.
they give them a
They
pill like a.
thought they were being, yeah, they
Yeah.
thought they were being given a pill. So they've done
But they
exactly the
weren't.
same as the rest of the group, but
Yeah.
they was given a blank pill, a sugar pill. They were given something that had
Yeah.
no effective dose of anything
Yeah.
in it
So they
whatsoever,
lost one
and they lost one
percent.
percent,
So
one
so
percent, which
people
is
who actually,
statistically shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the people who actually took the drug were actually getting legit results, and the people who took the placebo were basically going nowhere. So that's a great study. That's always a great study to look at, because a lot of people will argue, well, they probably, a lot of people will come in and say, a lot of the,
Mm.
the glass half empty people will say, well, those people were 300-pound people. They were put on a diet and exercise, and it don't mean shit if they were taking a drug, because anybody who gets on a good diet and exercise will still lose weight. So it won't matter.
Yes.
Well, in this
Yeah.
case, it proves that it does matter because the ones that did the
Yeah.
exact same diet and exact same training, exact same
Yeah.
exercise, and exact
Yeah.
same weight,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
all equaled out, had the results on the drug versus the people who did not.
The minimum difference, Steve, and this is on the lowest dosage, is they lost 7 times more on the lowest dosage that we've mentioned versus up to 24 times more versus the placebo group. We know from the studies that you and I have looked at on other GLP shows, and specifically again today, Reta, that every single group, because of the type 2 diabetes, it typically comes from being overweight. And the reasons why these drugs were actually developed was to treat type 2 diabetes. And then they were found to benefit the diet and body fat loss, weight loss. Was that every single person in that study, even if they didn't apply it, was given advice on having a better fucking diet, motherfuckers. Just eat better than you're doing right now and just get some daily steps in. In other words, diet and lifestyle tips. If you can follow this protocol, you're going to get results. So we said the people across thousands of people in the studies, the ones that did the placebo in a relatively small group here, 1%, one. I could shit out 1%, Steve. You and I could fast for 24 hours and lose 1%. No problem at all. But to lose 7% or 24% or 17% or 18% or whatever, that is statistically so far and above the norm that you got to, there's zero argument to say that the product's not effective. There's some argument, which is we'll probably touch upon in the side effects, that you might lose a small amount of muscle mass because your body doesn't have to support the massive amount of fat that you've lost. And there are maybe other side effects that we've seen with people tweaking dosages, but we'll touch upon them later in the show. But as a group, as a whole, in all of the studies, success, success, success. That's why we're rating it as such a fucking amazing product, Steve. Let's carry on.
And look, over the years, you guys know me. I'm not a take a drug for this, take a drug for that.
Yeah,
But
me
this is
neither.
a
No.
great drug, and just it blew me away. Using it blew me away, and seeing the results that other people have had blew me away. Just the way it changes the way our bodies is. So pretty much, it's like fasting without actually fasting when you're taking this drug. It basically puts you in the fast. Because that glucagon effect of rising glucagon, the only times you can achieve
Yep.
rising glucagon, all things being equal, are when you're fasting. But when you're on this drug, it puts your body into that fasting mode of where your body is wanting to shed fat instead of store fat. And
Yes.
that's something
Makes
that
you
we need.
digest better, makes you better your food utilization, makes you better food choices. That's a miracle drug, guys.
So here's the
Talk
other
about the other
benefit.
yeah,
Yeah.
talk about some of the other benefits.
So when you go from being obese to normal size, that in itself is going to have great implications on your health. So if you're 300
Mm.
pounds with 30% body fat or 35% body fat, and you get on this drug and you lose 100 pounds and you get down to like 18% body fat or 15% body fat, that alone is going to help everything across the board. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that this drug does beautifully is helps you lose weight. But there's other things it does as well, not just the weight loss, but also include, it's going to help your heart health. It's going to help with your fasting glucose. It's going to help with your HbA1c. It's going to help that with things like tumors. It's been shown
Mm.
with pancreatic cancer to help shrink tumors. It's been shown to help with inflammation.
Yep.
It's been shown to help with things like dementia and inflammation of the brain. So all this is inflammation, 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 things we have going into our body. And inflammation breeds
Mm.
sickness and is a magnet to sickness in our bodies. And when we use anabolic steroids, they're inflammatory. That's why our organs become one of our reasons our organs become out of whack. Our livers, our kidneys, our heart, our brain, our skin,
Refreshing. Yep.
everything,
Yep.
everything becomes inflamed in the body. And some steroids inflame us more than others. Well, Retta is going to help with the inflammation. So I could argue that Retta would be a fantastic and healthy thing to add to every single steroid cycle you do, just for that reason, because it's going to help reduce inflammation throughout the body. So,
Let me touch on something else, Steve. I just thought of this as a benefit, and this is really applies to our American listeners, but also those of you that use private medical care in other countries. That you're actually going to save money. And how do you save money? As an example, here in the UK, Steve, there is a cost for if someone is having a heart operation in this country, the average price for heart operation, this is some years ago, so the numbers probably changed, used to be for an average person who's not overweight, £55,000. That's the surgeon, the nurses, the cleaning and the tools that they're using in the heart operation, and all the costs that are associated with staying in the hospital. And this is in the UK. In America, it'd be like 5 times, 10 times that at least, right? If you were obese, the risk of issues post surgery were that much higher. The risk of infection was that much higher. The risk of stress on your immune system recovery was that much higher. But the cost was 2 or 3 times. I think it might have been as high. And I'm again, this is off the top of my head, something stupid, Steve, of six figures, 200,000, 250,000 pounds versus the 55,000. And again, these numbers are old. So being in better shape, having better heart health, being lighter on your feet. Guys, you're just saving money buying fucking clothes. It sounds like a silly thing, but when you lose that weight, how do you fucking feel, Steve? You feel better. You're making better choices. Again, you're not rewarding yourself with crappy food. So you wouldn't think that. The obvious thing is the fat loss. That's the obvious thing. But there's so many other aspects. How you see yourself in the mirror, how your perception, as we said, just for bodybuilders, you're supposed to be eating clean and training well and doing the right thing. And as Steve said, reducing inflammation, making you feel fucking better just while you're doing hard training. That can be stressful just while you're on a restricted diet, because that can be stressful. But you're getting more from the diet because your body's, for want of a better phrase, physically and mentally re-educating your body to respond in a different way. So you wouldn't think that, but we're seeing that. That's the reason why we're seeing on the forums, we're seeing people on steroids, that's including Reta, while they're changing from SEMA to Reta, and so on and so forth. And they're not doing that because it's just the latest thing. They're doing it because it's better for them and giving them better results. And whether you're just a normal person out there on the street that's looking to lose a few pounds and get into shape, or whether you've got the idea of maybe standing on stage as a competitor at some point and just getting better results from what you're doing in the gym. That's the reason why normal people that aren't even thinking about competing, that are on our forums, are using it as well. So yeah, side effects, the benefits will be obvious, what comes from the studies, what comes from the science, but the less obvious stuff I've just touched upon as well. So that's
Yeah,
something for you listeners to think about too.
and you can go and check out, you can come on the forum and check out Geneza Pharma,
Yeah, see the results.
all the injectables and all the orals that they have available. No matter what you decide to run as your cycle from Geneza Pharma, you can add
Yep.
Reta to it. And Reta is not a hormone; it's a drug, and
Mm.
you can run it at on the cycle at your leisure, and you can really try it out alongside your cycle and see how you like it. And you may find, yeah, it's beneficial to me, or you might be like, you know what, I don't want to run it. You can just stop using it. It's because it's not something that you have to like dedicate yourself to. You can always decide to stop it. But a lot of people like to run it alongside their Geneza Pharma cycles now, and it gives
Yep.
them the added benefit of body fat loss and controlling
Mm.
that food noise. And why wouldn't you want those two things on cycle? Unless you were just trying to bulk and dirty bulk, they're really, or you just focus on powerlifting and you just want to get
Yeah,
stronger.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
in 99% of people out there who don't fall in that category, it would be a great addition. That's why you're seeing so many people using it alongside in their Geneza Pharma cycle. So let's talk about dosing. So look, most people out there are going to agree to start the Reta at a lower dose, maybe 1 or 1.5 milligrams. And this goes for both men and females. Okay. You want to do that before you ramp it up. And the reason you should do that is most of the side effects you're going to get on Reta are going to be in that first month or two. Now, when I took it,
Yeah.
that's what happened to me. Like the first month I took it, I would pretty much every 2 or 3 days, I'd have a bout of heartburn. Okay. And
Mm.
that was my side effect, because what happens is you have to kind of change the way you approach food. You're not going to be able to scarf down your food like you're usually used to. You're not going to be able to eat huge meals like you may have been used to. You're going to have to change. You're going to have discipline when it comes to food. And you're going to have to say, you know what, that extra bite of food, I'm not going to be able to eat. Growing up, some of you out there may have been like me. If you didn't eat your food, you got a beat down. If you didn't eat your food, you didn't finish your plate, you got a beat down. Well, on Retta, you shouldn't finish your plate on Retta. It's not going to allow that because it's got that slow gastric release, as all these
Yeah,
GLP-1s do, whether it's semaglutide or
yeah,
tirzepatide as well.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you shouldn't finish your meal. If you do finish your meal, you'll end up very nauseous afterwards and you'll feel sick. So
Yes.
you're going to have to make
Yeah.
that adjustment both psychologically and physically. So it might take you like a month or two to do that. So it's good to keep a low dosage when you first start. Once you get used to changing the way you eat, as Mobster talked about before, not using food as a
Yeah.
reward, then you can
Yes.
start increasing the dose. So after a month on 1.5 milligrams a week, you can gradually increase it by 0.5 milligram or 1 milligram every 2 to 3 weeks after that till you reach a desired dosage. The most I personally ever ran, I think, was like 2.5 or 3 milligrams a week. That's it. I have not found the need to run it more. Those of you, though, depending on what your goals are, some of you out there may choose to run it more. In the studies, they ran it up to 12 milligrams. But in the
Yeah.
studies,
Yeah.
they also showed that 8 milligrams was just as good as 12 milligrams. So I would tell you out there to no, there's really no need to run it any more than 4 or 6 milligrams a week at the maximum. And you can fluctuate the dosage. You can bring it up to 4 milligrams or maybe 5 milligrams and then say, you know what, this is too much. And you can drop it back down to 2 or 3 milligrams. So that would be something you can experiment with. There's no rule against it. Now, in terms of how long
What
to run
about the
it,
kind of length of time on, Steve? So discuss a little bit about
yeah,
that.
that's what I'm going
We
to do
have seen
now.
people run it
Yeah.
before. Yeah,
So
go
the
on.
problem with Retta, okay, it's not a
Mm.
problem, it's a benefit, but it's also can
Yeah.
be a problem, depends on how you look at it, is that it has a very
Mm.
slow release. Okay. That's the way they designed it on purpose because they're actually coming out, Eli Lilly is actually coming out. I read about this actually 2 days ago. They're actually coming out with a GLP-1 that's a pill that you take every day. But with Retta, it's an injection once a week. And they did that on purpose
Yes.
because it's designed to be
Yes.
ran for a long period of time and possibly going forward. Kind of like running TRT. It's designed for long-term use. So you
Let
need to
me
give
touch.
it.
Sorry, let me touch upon that very briefly, Steve. So one of
Okay.
the reasons that they've done the one jab a week thing was because they felt that more people were more likely to stick to doing something that they only need to do once a week, and that includes injecting themselves. And it's very easy to inject, which we could touch upon as well. Versus something that you would have if you had to inject daily, way less people were going to be able to stick that out. And at the same time, you are going to see results over the long term. So that's going to encourage you. But the idea of simply this, they could have made a product that was short acting. They could have made a product that you could do every single day. If they come up with a product that gives you the same great results and it's once a fucking month, I'm sure they will. But the idea was that people were more likely to stick to something and get the results that we've just talked about if they only had to do one injection a week. It makes a lot of sense to do it that way, purely to make a product successful and to get you the results that you're going to talk about. There you go, Steve.
Yeah, so in reality, you really need to aim to run this stuff 6 to 9 months to really get the
Yeah.
most out of it. Now, can you run it shorter? As I said earlier, sure. You can
Mm.
run it for a
Yeah.
few weeks
Yeah.
and stop using it. It's not gonna,
Mm.
it's fine. But you really want to do that, and then run it a long time. Now, we also see some people doing the microdose thing. This seems to be more popular among
Mm.
the Australians on the forum. And what they'll do is they'll
Yeah.
run it 3 times a week, or they'll even run it daily or every other day, a smaller amount. And they seem to think that that helps them, you know. But again, the way the drug was designed was to do once a week. That's what
Yeah.
people in the studies did. They took it once a week. But of course, as bodybuilders, we like to reinvent the wheel and we'll do it a different way. At the end of the day, it's going in your system the same way if you take it
Mm.
every day or take it once a week. It's going in your body the same way.
I think the only argument for that, we will touch upon this in a moment, listeners, with regards to the side effects, that in specifically for retatrutide is the idea that the more frequent, smaller injections mitigated some users' side effects versus the idea. And again, look, the way that I look at it, maybe it's the bodybuilding mentality, like Steve said.
Yeah.
If
It's
you're
still
taking, as
taking
I
time to
mentioned
build up in
earlier,
your system, whether you inject a smaller
yes, and if
amount
you're looking at a
daily or once a
huge
week.
number of people, yeah,
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
people in some of the studies, and seeing these fantastic results overall from doing it once a
In the
week, you
short
don't need to.
term, it
Yeah.
does make a little bit of a difference, but over the long term,
Mm.
6 months down
Less
the
and
line,
more.
it's not going to
Yeah.
matter. It's
Yes.
still going to be in your system the same amount,
Yeah.
whether you inject it daily or weekly. So really, that's the way to look at that. But that's a whole argument for a whole other day. Let's talk about some of the side
Yeah.
effects. Let's talk about some
Hmm.
side effects. Um, Look, the number one issue with Retta or any other GLP-1 is the rebound effect when you stop taking it. And that's something to really think about. Because if you're going to stay on this stuff for 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, and then you lose, you go from 15% to 7%, or you go from 25% body fat down to 12% body fat. Okay, so you have a tremendous amount of results and you come off of it, and all that shit that I talked about earlier that it's doing in your body is gone. And it's going to slowly
Mm.
trickle out of your system. It's not going to be gone the next day, but it's going to slowly trickle out of your system. So a couple months after you stop taking it, or 6 weeks after you start taking it, the drug's going to pretty much be out of your system. It's no longer going to be giving you those benefits. So what's going to happen? You're going to start getting a rebound effect. Your appetite is going to roar back. You're not going to have that
Mm.
slow gastric release. You're not going to have that effect of the GIP. You're not going to have the effect of the appetite suppression. You're not going to have the effect of the insulin sensitivity. You're not going to have the effect of all that stuff, okay, that we talked about, the glucagon effects and all that stuff. So what's going to happen is you're going to gain a lot of weight back. Now, are you going to gain everything back? Not necessarily, but you'll probably gain a good chunk of it back. Okay. So it's one of those things where you have to be aware of that, especially if you go back to eating the way you ate before, obviously. But even if you don't go back to
Yes.
where you're eating before, you'll still, there's a good chance that you'll gain a big chunk back. So it is something you need to think
I'm going to
about.
be a bit momentarily preachy here, Steve, jumping in for a second. Guys, there's some argument, as we made earlier on, in regards to the way that you've had increased insulin sensitivity, that it makes you feel fuller with smaller amounts of food and so on and so forth. One of the things that perhaps people struggle with is their relationship to food. And as Steve said, if there's a rebound, I'm going to hope, and again, especially people listening to this show, people that we have on the forums that are using these products, have a better relationship with food than they did before because you haven't had to eat enormous amounts of food to feel satisfied. You haven't had to treat yourself just fucking because you can. Then your relationship with food should have changed. Now, whether that's emotionally and mentally versus physically is the argument that comes in here. So here's the thing, and this is maybe one of those mobs are being a little bit preachy. You would have learned to eat less over this long period of time that you've been using Reta. This is the time when you come off and when the benefits start to leach out of your system as the half-life that takes that long for it to clear. This is a time where your discipline, liking what you see in the mirror, becomes the most important thing. I can completely understand. Oh man, fucking hell! Yeah, I can fucking murder a fucking donut. Man, that type of ice creams look really attractive right now. Now the retter's out of my system. I can smash the fucking granny out of that. Now's the time to kick down. Now's the time to bite the bullet. Now's the time to have that sense of discipline that perhaps you lost before the retter and you kind of gained back and the food noise quietened down. Now's the time to realize that you have that sense of control, that you're still doing your daily steps, you're still eating cleaner. Now's the time to continue those good habits. So will you gain some back? I guarantee yes. It's like when you come off steroids, you're going to lose a bit of muscle, but you don't lose everything. And you shouldn't gain back 40, 50 pounds if that's what you lost. But it's also the time for you, the listener, to take control and take certain think steps towards trying not to fucking go down slippery slope and putting the 40 or 50 pounds back on. It's when you're going to take charge, and it's not just going to be the medication. But of course, it was your choice to use the medication. It was your choice to take these steps and lose that fat. So take control as best you can, even if you gain a few percent back. Don't gain all of it back because otherwise you're back to square one. So it's on you. And that's my little preachy part for the episode there, Steve. Talk a little bit about some of the other side effects that some people experience when they're using the product, just to finish that element.
Yeah, I talked about this a little earlier, and most of these side effects are going to happen the first month when you're on it,
Yes.
maybe first month
Yeah.
and a half.
Yeah.
It keeps happening after that. You really need to take a look at the food that you're eating, because a lot of
Mm.
times people don't realize how intolerant they are to certain foods like garlic, onions, tomato sauce. These are
Yeah.
some things that you could be corn. A lot of people are intolerant to that, and if you eat that, you're going to get heartburn. If you eat that, you're going to get diarrhea. If you
Mm.
eat that, you're going to get upset stomach. Pizza, dairy, lots of different things that people eat, ice cream, and they shouldn't be eating. So if
Mm.
you're still dealing with issues, you need to really take a look at your diet and eat a more clean diet. And that's what happens here.
Yes.
So
Eat healthier, yeah.
you're not going to be able to order a pizza and eat half the pizza anymore on this stuff. You're going to deal with, you're going to have stomach problems. So heart
It does get better as the longer you're on. The side effects do tend to sort of
yeah, but they're not going to get
dampen
better
down
if
and
you keep
quieten down.
eating. If you keep eating shit, they're not going to get
No,
better.
you
I
have
promise you.
yeah,
So you got to watch
upon you.
out for that.
You'll
So
get
that's
better
very
results as well, Steve. You'll get a better outcome as well. Let's talk a little bit about Geneza themselves. Well, we've discussed this on other shows. I'll start this as well. Why do we talk about companies like Geneza? I'm gonna read what I've got in front of me, guys, because I know that it's correct as well. It says it's one of the best brands out there, and you don't get to be a best brand if the product that you're selling is rubbish. You don't get to be a best brand if people don't try your products and get great results. They've been around a long time. I talk about this all the time on the forums and on all these kind of shows. I don't want a Johnny come lately. That's great. Doesn't mean that their products are poor, but I'd rather have a company that's been around a long time and continued over that length of time to bring out solid products that work. And as he says here, right across the board, goes on. Not only will Geneza sell you, for example, the retatrutide, but they're also you can buy amazing steroids and ancillaries. And we know that. Steve's tried some of the products. I'm pretty fucking sure I've tried some of the products. In fact, I know that I have. And I've had pretty fucking good results from those products. I know that Steve has as well. And we're also looking at things like peptides and ancillaries and so on and so forth. So talk about your points of view on Geneza as well, Steve, before we talk about where to buy it from.
Yeah, and a lot of people are always asking on the social media platforms that we're on, where can I get Geneza Pharma? Where can I get it? Guys, you got to come on the forum. We can't
Mm.
post where to get it. We can't mention it on the podcast either. So you have to come on the forum, evolution.org, sign up,
Yeah.
and come on. You'll find out where to get it. So it's very, very important. And it's important to get it from a legitimate source. You don't want to get fake
Yes.
Geneza Pharma. You want to get legit Geneza Pharma. Now, Geneza Pharma, they've been around a long time. I've used them for years. Mobsters used them for years. They have excellent orals,
Mm.
excellent injectables. We talked about that earlier. And there are other products like this that are not FDA approved. They are not going to be something you can go to your doctor or clinic or ask for because they're not approved yet. So Geneza Pharma does a great job of bringing these hard to find gray market, black
Yes.
market type of
Mm.
products
Mm.
available to you that other brands and other sources aren't going to be able to do. So the prices are affordable. That's another good thing about
Yep.
Geneza Pharma. They have weekly
Yeah, very
deals.
much so. Yeah. Yeah.
So you can find 50% off deals on a weekly basis if you come on the forum. They'll post the 50% off deals and they have excellent prices in their own right. So it's not the cheapest you're going to find. Your steroid dealer might have it cheaper, but the steroid dealer is also going to
Mm.
sell you stuff that's like 30% dose. Geneza Pharma is 99% dosed. It's been tested.
Yes.
It's been sent
Yes.
off to be tested. So they're very, very high
Yes.
quality.
Let me touch upon that a little bit, and I'm even going to talk about the price very briefly. I can tell you the numbers I'm seeing for SEMA, and this is locally, and that's off the top of my head. And again, this is early 2026 as we're recording this show. I think £120. So that'd be about $160, $170 for a month supply. And Steve and I did a show on the GLPs absolutely ages ago where the American customers were paying 12,000 fucking dollars per year for the pharma company product. And of course, the reason for that is not because it costs 12,000 fucking dollars to produce, it's because the pharma companies put an enormous amount of money into the research to produce this. They got to pay their investors and get some of their money back. Eventually, when the license runs out, the price will come down as other companies can step in, and different pharmaceutical companies in different countries can step in. That happens with the grey and the black market that we're discussing. Let me talk about it as well. So how does a company like Geneza, why do we know it's a solid thing? I mean, it's silly examples, right? Number one, and we've got some links here in the article that will tell you where to buy it from as well, which will be on the forums for you to come and look at. You can look at, as we've already said, you can search on our forums for people that you can literally put Reta or Retatrutide into the search engine on the forum, the search bar on the forums, and find, as I did, half a dozen logs on the forum straight away. Top of the list, half a dozen. It's just going to give me half a dozen straight away to choose from. So you then go onto that and you can see someone using Retatrutide to say, look, what's your, you can join the forum and ask them about their experience. If you can't see what you want to see, you can ask them. Number two, Steve mentioned companies like Geneza become approved because their products are used, not just retatrutide, but steroids and ancillaries, like we touched upon earlier on, regularly. So you can literally again search for Geneza or Geneza Pharma on the forums. And it's not just mine and Steve's opinion, as we do in this show, may be biased in their own particular way, but other people that nothing to do with this podcast using Geneza products and getting great results. And finally, Steve mentioned the testing part. And I say this about all our approved sources, whether that's the company themselves testing the product, the company that's providing you the product, taking random samples as it's been delivered to them before sending it to you as a customer testing the product, or whether it's groups of members of forums doing it. And specifically, one of my favorite ones is, Steve, is random customers who've got $1,000 in their pocket. Instead of spending it on a cycle for themselves or the next thing coming up, they've literally said, I wanted to see if the approved sources, including Geneza, were solid, like you guys talk about on the podcast, like you talk about on the forum. And in one example, which I've mentioned many times, they brought 10 products, different products, wasn't the same product, but 10 products from 10 different companies, including Geneza, and sent them away to the most well-known testing for this kind of product lab in the world. All the companies use it. All the people that get these products tested use the same company. Every single product from every approved source came back on fucking point. I think the lowest score was 93%, maybe more. I think that was one or two products. The average was 97%, and there was a couple that was slightly over. In other words, they were overdosed, 101, 102%. But the average score was 97 fucking percent, Steve. Now, in pharma itself, I believe they have to be within 95%, meaning that the approved sources that we talk about were independently tested by a person listening to this show or a random member on a forum, and the numbers across the board statistically were higher than that is required by the pharmaceutical industry. That's not just me and Steve saying it. That's not mobster randomly talking shit off the top of his head. You can go onto the forum and search for these tests and see for yourself. And then the great thing with using that lab that I mentioned is that there will be a number associated with the test. You could then go to the lab company website and put that number in and see the same fucking test that we've got on the forum that someone's posted a screenshot of on the forum on the lab company website and see it was product that we described from this source. This is what the lab saw on the bottle. This is the label that they saw. And this is what we found in the product. And that's the number that came back. You can do that. We're telling you don't have to because we just told you. But you can, if you want to, check this information out for yourself and see in black and white by the testing company what the numbers were, what the results were, what it looked like, how they tested it, and whatever the fuck you want to do, guys. So this is super, super important that you do these things. Hopefully, and Steve and I said this at the beginning of the show, I think I'll bring Steve in for this as well. There's been other products in the past that people have used. We've touched upon some of the bad ones. We didn't mention some of the ones that were kind of rubbish or ineffective, Steve, or people couldn't stick with. I came to this whole GLP thing a little bit of a, as Steve likes to give me shit for, being a boomer, being old school. You should just fucking diet, you lazy bastards, do more cardio. And then we looked at the science, and then we looked at where the scientists fought and how they came to produce these products. And then they looked at aspects.
That's the thing, though, because of the way this drug is, you can't just take it and eat pizza and ice cream all day because you're just going to be nauseous and sick all the time. You're only hurting yourself. So it forces you to
actually want to eat better.
It forces you to actually eat better by doing. That's the ironic thing. It's so weird. It's like having someone kicking your ass. You're gonna get your ass kicked if you don't eat good on it. You'll be throwing up. You'll have a heartburn all day. And so it really is a fascinating drug. And one of the tricks you can do as we finish up the podcast is you could start using the Reta before you run your Geneza Pharma cycle. So you can start the Reta like a month or two before you're planning your cycle. Then you start your cycle, run your cycle, and then continue the Reta throughout your cycle, and then continue the Reta when you come off your cycle. And this will help you get through that first month or two where you may be dealing with those initial side effects. And then by the time you start your cycle, your diet, you'll figure out which foods am I intolerant to, and you'll be able to eliminate those foods, and you'll have a much smoother cycle, and you'll be leaner. You'll be leaner by the time you start your cycle, and you'll get leaner on your cycle while you're also building muscle and strength on your steroids from Geneza Pharma. So it really is, that's a strategy that you can implement, or you don't even have to use steroids with Reta. You can just run
Yeah.
Reta by itself and lose
Thousands of
weight.
people in the study. That's exactly what they did, Steve. Absolutely.
So
12,000 people
it's
in one study.
so it's a great drug, and hopefully on this podcast you guys learned a lot. And look, at the end of the day, all these geniuses out there, all these self-proclaimed gurus, they think they're like, oh, I'm the expert on this. I'm excited. Look, you're the full of shit, because 3 years ago they had never even heard of Retatrutide.
Yeah.
So it's new to all of us, and Mobster and I were reading these
Yes.
studies, so and we're
Yes.
trying to educate ourselves as much as we can. I'm experimenting
Trying
with
to
it.
understand the methodology of
Mobster is going
action,
to
trying to
be,
understand how the studies.
Mobster is going to be
Yep.
using it himself pretty soon once he's done,
Probably.
with his powerlifting
Lifting
thing.
crazy shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So because we don't want to lose him at a young age, we want him to.
Steve wants me to have a six-pack again.
Well,
and be healthy. This is the reason why. I mean, all joking aside, this is the reason why. And I touched upon this when I said about that kind of sense of discipline. Guys, if you're listening to this show and you're listening specifically to this show with the reason for educating yourself on this product, it's because you want to make a change. It's because you want to be healthier. It's because you want to be leaner. It's because you want to lose 30 or 40, 50 pounds or whatever. It might be 20 pounds, whatever. If you're a bodybuilder, you might want to lose a few percent. You have decided to make an improvement in your life. And we've come to this kind of almost open-eyed, what's it all about for us when we started doing the GLP shows, going away and look at the studies, and we kind of, what the fuck, is stuff fucking amazing. And it wasn't just how we read it. We then went onto the forums and we said, oh, look, there's someone using it. Let's ask them how they're getting on. And then we see more and more and more people doing it. Now, this is not a Me Too product. The reason why these people are using it is because they've got success, because they are seeing fucking results. Imagine, and I'm going to sound like a salesperson, Steve, to finish. Imagine you wake up today, you listen to this show, and you make a decision. Guys, Mobster and Steve Bleeper, I'm fucking having some of that. And in 20 weeks from now, Steve, they're down 20 or 30 pounds because of the show that we did. They've taken control of they literally have been forced almost by the drug to eat better. So now they feel better. They're lighter on their feet. They're healthier. The response to food is better. And as per using an approved source like Geneza, it's not costing them thousands of fucking dollars like the product that they could buy. It's costing them a fraction of that price. And that's without the deals, etc., that are available. It could be, and I'm not going to fucking sort of guarantee this for you guys because I don't think I should, but it could well be, and just to say positive things at the end of the show, Steve, the best fucking decision you've ever made, whether that's getting into shape, being healthier, being lighter, or just using a product that fucking works in a way that we've never seen before in all the time that we've been doing these shows, and specifically with our education and our experience. And even if a guru or an expert, they wouldn't disagree with that, Steve. They can come on and pretend to be something they ain't, but they wouldn't disagree that this is a product that's working better than anything that's been brought to the market.
You know what, Mobster?
In all the time.
Let me tell you something. You've convinced me. How much and where can I get it? You've convinced me. You should work at a used car shop.
Oh, guys, it's my big car that used to buy. It's only got 6,000 miles and was driven by a virgin nun. But don't worry about it, Steve. Yeah. Honestly, guys, I came to this, just to finish, I literally came to all the GLPs and I hadn't got a fucking clue. Yeah, it can't be that fucking, what the fuck? But then we started to look at, they got that particular come from the mucus in the stomach. That particular thing works on the digestion, so you feel full up. Oh, what does that mean? Well, you literally can't eat as much food as you used to eat. Oh, so you're fuller with less. Well, you're saving money on food. Oh, now you can't eat crap because it's just going to make you feel shitty. So then you've got to eat better. Well, that's a fucking benefit right there. And then you look at the numbers, and literally, this is what most people will focus on, Steve. They'll fuck the side effects, fuck the results, but they will literally look at the numbers. The longer people are on, and up to an effective dose. Beyond was, as said Steve, it doesn't get crazy if you double up or triple up, like we said, with the side effects of other drugs. But if you're on a sensible dose, ones that we've suggested are perfectly fine. The longer you're on, the better fucking overall number is. And we've seen, what was one example? I think we had a person on one of the studies that was 400 pounds and they lost something stupid like 120 pounds of fat because they were on fucking 40 weeks or something ridiculous. And it's that, but it's the statistics when they take the group as a whole, Steve, and you go 27%, 24%, 17%, and that's across everybody. Some people would have had even better fucking results than that. And when you look at that and you think you're out of shape, you go, I could be 17% less. 300 pounds, Steve, that is 54 pounds of fat. You would go from 300 to 246 pounds. Just think about that when you're listening to this, listeners, and you're thinking about, should I or shouldn't I? Do the numbers for yourself and realize just how effective that could be. And that was over not even the 72 weeks, that was over less weeks. Think about that if you're thinking about using these products. Listen to this show again if you need to. Come on the forum and ask us fucking questions. And look at the logs that we've talked about just to get more informed before you go ahead and buy these products, because we think you will probably be hearing about this in your newspapers, in your magazines, and your online stuff, adverts that are coming out. As soon as this stuff becomes FDA approved, it's going to blow up like a motherfucker, and you'll wish it is already on it. So there you go, as my salesman thing again, Steve. You're gonna want to be on the ground floor, and you've missed your opportunity. And even if it's just you investing in the pharma company, I think this is going to blow up so bloody big. It's going to be absolutely crazy. Just as an example, Stephen, to finish the show, the NHS, the UK government, is talking about specifically giving out GLP products. So something stupid like 30% of our population, literally on prescription. Here in South Wales, we don't have to pay for our scripts. So the idea that that many more people could get into better shape and be healthier, and the government is actually behind the idea of allowing this stuff to go out for free or subsidised on the NHS for way, way, way less than you'll pay in America privately or with the medical system you've got there, is something that I've never seen before. That is absolutely fucking crazy. And I know the history of this stuff going back to the 50s and 60s, and especially the 60s and stuff like that. So the idea that the government is behind people getting into shape and being better and being healthier in a particular way that they're prepared to subsidize is fucking fantastic. So that's just going to give you an indication again. If something negative happens, if something better comes along, trust, we will do a podcast on it. We will talk about it and we will bring the latest information for you. So keep listening to the shows, guys. Any final thoughts from you, Steve, before we go to the disclaimer?
That's it, buddy. Just check it out, guys, and check
Yes.
out the logs and see how many people are using it, and see all the people using Geneza
Mm.
Pharma, and definitely check them out.
Yeah. Check out what we said to back up the information for yourself and get your own perspective on it as well, guys. And feel free to comment and ask questions, because that's what we're here for. We want to give you the best information we can. Please note, we are not doctors and the opinions are ours. It is our view based on our experience and views on the topic. Our podcast are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.